Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta apeta krityam Rapaino viraha katara ajuhava Putreti tan maitaya taravo binedus Tam sarvabhutam hridayam munimanatosmi Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptastika Mari Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So today's the appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya. We have been reading about him in Chaitanya Charitamrita, only just beginning. The chapter is so full, it just expands more and more on his glories and on the tattva of Advaita Acharya and pastimes. But since in 1 week we're going to be doing Nityananda Prabhu, we have to jump back to him. But today we have some beautiful excerpts. So we're going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto our beloved gurus, under their lotus feet. Shri Guru Pada Padmanita Leda Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and unto Shri Guru Pada Padmanita Leda Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Raj, unto our exalted Rupanuga Varga, unto Sri Advaita Acharya, and unto all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So there were 2 verses which are going to be quoted in what I'm reading, but just as an introduction, I'll read them anyway. Oh God, I can't. There's not enough light. Well, I can read the English. That's in bold. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. So, I jumped ahead a little bit in the Chaitanya Charitamrita because we had been talking about Advaita Acharya. He is the incarnation of Mahavishnu. He is also the incarnation of Sadashiv, right? I don't need that now. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
I didn't even know it worked. And the incarnation of Sadashiv. But Sadashiv has 2 functions as well. The original form of Sadashiv in the Vaikuntha realm, non-different Vishnu Tattva, and his expansion, Shambhu, who is also referred to as Sadashiv, who appears in this material world and who has the function of a special form of the Lord who can interact with the material energy, who acts as the initiator, the impregnator, right? And the empowering consort of his Shakti, Mahamaya. Right? We discussed that at length. But now, Srila Prabhupada gives a nice reconciliation there, right, of those principles in verse 79 of that chapter. The verse is Ananta Brahmande Rudra Sadashivera Angsa Guna avatara tenho sarva deha avatangsa. And we're going to read this, and then we're going to read from the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Associates, compiled by Bhakti Ballabhatirtha Goswami Maharaj, which is going to draw from many different sources and also tell wonderful pastimes of the history of Advaita Acharya. But here, we're going to hear some of the tattva, which gives us an insight into the multiple functions of Sadashiva. Rudra, who is an expansion of Sadashiva and who appears in unlimited universes, is also a guna avatar, qualitative incarnation of the particular guna, right? And is the ornament of all the demigods in the endless universes. So, purport. There are 11, what happened? There we go. There are 11 expansions of Rudra, or Lord Shiva. They are as follows: Ajay Kapat, Ahi Badna, Virupaksha, Raivata, Hara, Bahurup, Deva Shreshta, Thrayambaka, Savitra, Jayanta, Pinaki, and Aparajit. Besides these expansions, there are 8 forms of Rudra called earth, water, fire, air, sky, the sun, the moon, and Soma Yaji. Generally, all these Rudras have 5 faces, 3 eyes, and 10 arms. Sometimes it is found that Rudra is compared to Brahma and considered a living entity. But when Rudra is explained to be a partial expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is compared to Shesh. Lord Shiva is therefore simultaneously an expansion of Lord Vishnu and, in his capacity for annihilating the creation, one of the living entities. As an expansion of Lord Vishnu, he is called Hara, and he is transcendental to the material qualities. But when he is in touch with Tamagun, he appears contaminated by the material modes of nature. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam and the Brahma Samhita. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, it is stated that Lord Rudra is always associated with the material nature when she is in the neutral, unmanifested stage. But when the modes of material nature are agitated, he associates with the material nature from a distance. In the Brahma Samhita, the relationship between Vishnu and Lord Shiva is compared to that between milk and yogurt. Milk is converted into yogurt by certain additives, but although milk and yogurt have the same ingredients, they have different functions. Similarly, Lord Shiva is an expansion of Lord Vishnu. Yet because of his taking part in the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation, he is considered to be changed, like milk converted into yogurt. And also in the creation, right? There's that description in Brahma Samhita. In the Puranas, it is found that Shiva appears sometimes from the heads of Brahma and sometimes from the head of Vishnu. The annihilator, Rudra, is born from Sankarshan and the ultimate fire to burn the whole creation. The annihilator, Rudra, is born from Sankarshan and the ultimate fire to burn the whole creation. In the Vayu Purana, there is a description of Sadashiv in one of the Vaikuntha planets. That Sadashiv is a direct expansion of Lord Krishna's form for pastimes. It is said that Sadashiv, Lord Shambhu, is an expansion from the Sadashiv in the Vaikuntha planets, Lord Vishnu, and that his consort Mahamaya is an expansion of Ramadevi or Lakshmi. Mahamaya is the origin or birthplace of material nature. So the Shambhu that we were talking about earlier, that we're emphasizing when we were talking about the verses, in his role as the instigator for creation of the material universes, the expansion, the development, through his consort, Mahamaya, that Shambhu is sometimes also referred to Sadashiv, as Sadashiv, and he is a special expansion of the original Sadashiv in the Vaikuntha planets. And then there's a further expansion of the Rudras, who appear in many forms in the material world, right? And take pastimes, who are also identified as Lord Shiva. So the forms of Lord Shiva are multifarious, right? But they come from the original Sadashiva, who is an expansion of Lord Krishna through Lord Baladev in the spiritual world. Now, we're going to go to the book Sri Chaitanya and His Associates, and compiled by Bhakti Vallabha Goswami Maharaj, a wonderful disciple of Srila Bhaktivedanta Madhav Goswami Maharaj. And he has taken source material from many different scripture. And he begins with a quote from Gauraganadesh Deepika, which follows what Srila Prabhupada just said, verses 76 to 80. So, Sadashiv, formerly an Avesh incarnation of the Supreme Lord in Braj, is known as Advaita Acharya in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. He is not different from Lord Chaitanya himself. Right? So when Advaita Acharya is called Sadashiv, refers to this Sadashiv, that he's an incarnation, but it also describes that his own expansion, further expansion, is responsible for the role of material creation. So as Sadashiv, he is that special expansion in Braj. Now listen to this. In Braj, Sadashiv took the form of a cowherd boy and danced alongside Krishna. This is stated by Bhairava in the Shiva Tantra. Quote, once during the Diwali festival in the month of Kartik, my guru, Shankaradev, saw Krishna dancing with Balaram and the cowherd boys. He became desirous of becoming a cowherd boy himself. And he began to dance, spinning like a whirling wheel for Krishna's pleasure. Thus, by Krishna's mercy, Sadashiv plays two different roles in Braj. In one, he is Shiva himself. In the other, he is a cowherd boy. So, in the Braj pastimes, including the ones manifest here, right, the Bhoma Leela, the Shiva that we see acting there is originally Sadashiv. He's the original Sadashiv. Right? And we have many pastimes. For instance, when in Nandagan, Krishna was very restless and crying. Mother Jashoda couldn't put him to sleep very easily. And then a very fearsome yogi came to her door. White complexioned, beautiful white complexioned, covered in ashes, wearing a skin, skulls around, a garland of skulls, snakes, right? Trident, big, huge trident. And she said, what do you want? I want to see your son. And she wouldn't let him because he was so fearsome. My son's already crying. If he sees you, he'll never stop crying. He'll be so afraid. So the yogi went off some distance and began to play his drum, his little, what is it called, dundubi drum? Anyway, and that sound was going on constantly. And Mother Yashoda was more disturbed, so her friend said, you have to call that yogi. And that's the only way. You have to pacify him and let him see your son. So reluctantly, she called the yogi, and she had her son dressed in black. She had the black dot, all these things in order to protect him from demons, envious people. In India, the tradition is to put these black dots on the child's face so he doesn't look so beautiful. He looks ugly, so they won't be envious of him and curse him or something, right? Anyway, she brought him out like that. And as soon as he saw, the little boy saw this form of Lord Shiva, the Sadashiv, the original form, he became very happy and peaceful. And Mother Yashoda was quite astonished. And then the yogi said, Mother, I'm going to be nearby. If you ever have any problem, there's any danger, your child is disturbed, you just call on me. I will always be here. And he manifested, he stayed there nearby as Sadashiva, maintaining sacrificial fire, doing functions of a yogi. But he also manifested himself as the very hill upon which Nandagan is resting. So he's always there. And apparently he took a form as a cowherd boy, and we have other confidential literature which reveals how, witnessing the Rasa Leela, he wanted to take part in that as well. And he did austerities to please Purnamasi, who then dipped him into, I think, Kusum Sarovara, or was it Brahmakund? I can't remember, one of those two. And he became a beautiful young maiden. And then she hid him in a kunja, right, nearby where the Rasa Leela was going to take place. But somehow the Rasa Leela dance, they couldn't fully get into the mood. Krishna was disturbed, the gopis felt some disturbance. Kind of like when Mahaprabhu was doing his kirtan, and the mother-in-law, or the mother of Srivas Pandit, wanted so much to see it, and so she hid herself in a basket in the room or in the courtyard where they were doing the kirtan, so she couldn't be seen and she could witness it. And ultimately, Mahaprabhu also was disturbed. I can't feel the same ecstasy. Perhaps someone unqualified is hiding nearby. And they discovered her, kicked her out. And so the gopis were feeling the same thing. Krishna's feeling the same thing. So they searched from kunja to kunja, and then they found this young maiden. And they said, who are you? What's your name? She'd been given the form, but she'd been given no name. Who are your parents? She didn't have parents. What's your village? None of the only Ekadash Bhav she had was the form and the dress. She didn't have service, didn't have a name, didn't have parents, didn't have a village. And as they began to question her and she couldn't come up with any answers, why are you here? They began to slap her cheeks until they became red and swollen. She began to cry, oh, Purnamasi, save me. Purnamasi came and explained the situation. And then she said, please allow this young girl to do some service here. So the gopis blessed her and gave her the service of guarding the entrance to the Rasa Leela. And she became known as Gopi Ishvara. Not that she's the lord of the gopis, but the gopis are her lord. And she rests in Vrindavan. In Lohi Bazaar, near Lohi Bazaar, there's a temple with this Gopishwar. Lord Shiva is the Lokapala in all the different forests. There's a form of Lord Shiva who protects that forest and the pastimes, right, from unauthorized intrusion and from dangers. So that Sadashiva also has the desire to serve in every way, right? So he's a cowherd boy, he's Gopishwar, and he's Lord Shiva himself as that form of the yogi, going here and there, and also in later pastimes, during the time of Mahaprabhu, he's also there. And he's a friend of Sanatana Goswami. Oh, and also during Krishna Lila, when Lord Indra was raining thunderbolts down on Giriraj, he came in with his trident and protected against the thunderbolts. So he does so much seva. Now, let's hear this beautiful compilation that goes further from Bhakti Ballabhatirtha Goswami Raj. He says, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami quotes the following evidence from the diary of Sri Damodar to describe the ontological principle of Advaita Acharya. This is one I couldn't read from the book, but here it's nice and bright. I'll make it even brighter. There we go. Ooh, yeah. Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Srijatyada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara Advaitam Harinadvaitad Acharyam Bhakti Sankshanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye. These are the verses we just read. Mahavishnu is the master of the universe, which he creates through his power of Maya. Lord Advaita Acharya is the avatar of this form of the Supreme Lord. So he's Mahavishnu. He is known as Advaita because he is none other than Hari, and as Acharya because he is the preceptor of devotion. I take shelter of the Supreme Lord Advaita Acharya, who is the avatar of a devotee. So he's simultaneously Sadashiv and Mahavishnu, which is not incorrect. I mean, it's hard to reconcile. Oh, they're not two separate. They're all expansions of the Lord. So from the position of tattva, they're all non-different. And yet, they may have slightly different moods, slightly different seva. The Lord will manifest himself in all of these different forms to exchange with different kinds of devotees and to perform different kinds of functions and pastimes. So he's going to quote Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur here to explain Maya has two functions, and Mahavishnu appears in two ways according to those functions. When he is within the material world as creator, he is the universe's effective cause, nimitta karana, in his form as Vishnu. In the unmanifest material energy, Pradhan, appearing in the form of Rudra, he has a second identity as Advaita. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that's his quote. Now, he's going to explain. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur has also written about Advaita Acharya in his Anubhasya to Chaitanya Charitamrita, on the 12th verse of that chapter. Lord Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu. He is the supreme preceptor. Vishnu's activities are auspicious because of his existence as the owner or master of the universes. He is the root source of all auspiciousness. Those who are entangled in the material hankerings, which are like garbage, our material hankerings are like garbage. I was sitting in my room this morning trying to prepare, overwhelmed as usual by material hankerings, and then I read this. And then, why am I attracted to garbage? Why am I attracted to garbage? Those who are entangled in the material hankerings, which are like garbage, cannot understand this greatest auspiciousness, which is pure, eternal, complete, and fully liberated. Thus they remain deprived of their true spiritual activity, devotion to Krishna. Now he's going to go on and explain some beautiful things. Because now we're going to come into pastimes. Advaita Acharya was also known as Kamalaksha. He's quoting now verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita, that 6th chapter. Next verse, Advaita embodies universal welfare. He is the abode of all auspicious qualities. His activities are the eternal source of the world's well-being, and so is his name. We read that. That's verse 12. Next, verse 26, which we didn't get to. Advaita, the abode of virtue, is a portion of Mahavishnu. Because he is not different from Vishnu, Advaita is his most perfect name. Anksa. Next, a verse that follows that, he is the noblest personality in the universe, the spiritual master of the Vaishnavas. By a combination of these two names, his name is Advaita Acharya. Since he is a limb or part of the lotus-eyed Supreme Lord, he also has the name Kamalaksha. Right? Kamal, the lotus. He's lotus-eyed. Sri Vrindavan, next verse. Then he says Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur has also described Advaita Acharya as both the foremost of the Vaishnavas and as Shiva. Quote, residing in Navadvip is the foremost and the most fortunate of all the Vaishnavas, Sri Advaita Acharya. He heads all spiritual masters in knowledge, devotion, and renunciation. He especially teaches devotion to Krishna in the same way that Lord Shankara did. That's from the second chapter of the Adikanda of Chaitanya Bhagavat. Now, we're going to hear some about his appearance and his pastimes. And in that, he's going to be quoting different sources, quite a bit from Bhakti Ratnakara. I wish we could get Bhakti Ratnakara on Kindle. I had a hard copy once, and I didn't get through the whole thing, but wherever I got, so much fantastic information in that book. Like we're going to hear about Advaita Acharya, but also about persons like Srinivas, Narottam, Shyamananda, Jiva Goswami, Gopal Bhatta, so much of those contemporary Vaishnavas. Anyway, so here we go. Advaita Acharya appeared in the village of Navagram near the city of Sylhet as the son of the Varendra Brahmana Kuvera Pandit and his wife Navadevi. That's the parents, Kuvera Pandit and his wife Navadevi, on the 7th day of the waxing moon in the month of Magh. So we're in the month of Magh, that cold month that Srila Prabhupada always talks about. You must take bath even in the month of Magh. Right? Whew. So Kuvera Pandit is identified in the Gaura Ganadesh Deepika with the god Kuvera, Mahadev's friend and the leader of the Guhyakas. Wow. So his father is Kuvera, right? In another identity. Wow. One of the principal demigods. Dear friend of Narad Muni, father of Nalakuvara and Manigriva, right? Who became cursed as trees. The leader of the Yakshas, right? So, now we're going to hear a quote from the Bhakti Ratnakara. Kuvera Pandit, a devotee of Nrsinga, resided in the village of Navagram near Sylhet in Bangladesh. So he's from East Bengal, right? He was a greatly fortunate follower of the path of devotion. He knew nothing other than the lotus feet of Krishna. His devoted and faithful wife was named Navadevi. She is worshipable for the whole world, for she is the mother of Advaita Prabhu. Okay, so that's from Bhakti Ratnakara. And here's some other quotations from Bhakti Ratnakara. On the 7th day of the waxing moon in the month of Magh, the great ocean of joy overflowed. In that auspicious moment, the moon of Advaita descended in the blessed womb of Navadevi. In his ecstasy, Kuvera Pandit made gifts to the Brahmanas and the poor. He tiptoed to the room where the child was delivered, and his heart was filled with gladness upon seeing his son's face. All the villagers came running to his house and said to each other, "What pious works did this Brahmana do, that in his old age he has been blessed with such a jewel of a son?" So they also were older. Sometimes, just like Mother Jashoda, she was older. They had been unsuccessful. She and Nanda Maharaj. Shachi and Jagannath Mishra also, later, older. Perhaps by then, they were recognized. Their own individual qualities had been manifesting over some time, and their full glory as persons and devotees was manifested to so many. And the desire of all those who were dear to them, these most fortunate of people, they've not yet had a son. If only they could. So everyone was involved. And now they all come running and they're seeing this son. Oh my goodness, who's ever seen such a beautiful child? The gods rain down flowers without being seen. There is nothing with which we can compare this scene. Ganesham sings of this great auspicious occasion when a joyous uproar rang around the earth, because the Lord himself has appeared. Wow, that's magnificent. It's also said that he was somewhere between 50 and 60 years older than Mahaprabhu. So when Mahaprabhu appeared, he was already, that much older. So he's very senior amongst all the Vaishnavas. Now, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Abhidan, Advaita's birthplace is given as Laura, near Sylhet. It is also said that there Advaita Prabhu left Laura to reside in Navahat, and then from there moved to Shantipur. He also had a home in Navadvip, very close to Mahaprabhu's place. There's a little small shrine there, Advaita Bhavan. They were all in that area. Srivas Thakur was there. It's a little bit further down the road. Advaita Gadadhar Pandit also lived there. So, his full name was Sri Kamalaksha, or Kamalakanta, Veda Panchadan. He appeared in 1434, and he disappeared in the year 1559, at the age of 125 years. In the Advaita Vilas it is written, "The Lord remained on this earth for a century and a quarter, performing unlimited pastimes." Janava Mata's Diksha disciple, Nityananda Das, gives a third opinion in his Prem Vilas that Advaita Acharya was born in Shantipur. He writes that he studied the Veda and other scriptures with the scholar Shantacharya, who lived in the Pulabhati section of Shantipur and earned the title Acharya. So, interesting. I think I'd lean towards Nityananda Das being disciple of Janava Mata and thus contemporary to the time of Advaita. Advaita Acharya's holy life has been described in several Bengali books, including Advaita Mangala, Advaita Vilas, and Sita Charitra. The great scholar Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also wrote several Sanskrit poems glorifying Advaita. Advaita Dvadasa Nama Stotra, Advaita Ashtakama, Advaita Stotra Shattanama Stotra. Okay, so that's some background. Now, what about his initiation? Okay, and some other pastimes. This is really great. Because we know that he went to Vrindavan, for instance, but, what else did he do? How did he get to Vrindavan? So, when Kuvera Pandit and Navadevi disappeared, his parents, Advaita Acharya went to Gaya on the pretext of performing the appropriate rituals of mourning. And because you go there, you do the Shraddha ceremony, and that's traditionally done in Varnashram to protect the parents from sinful reaction, right? To offer things in their name. But for parents like this, And a son like that, absolutely no need. For a Vaishnava, you don't have to do any of that. Sometimes devotees do. And, take the ashes of your parents, take them to the Ganga. That's certainly a wonderful thing. But ultimately, none of it is necessary for a Vaishnava. Their parents, generations before and in the future. If you're a Kanishta, 7? And if you're a Madhyam, 14. If you're Uttam, 21, at least. Generations before and after, all purified. But devotees still do this as example for others. We used to do it in Bangalore all the time for our congregation. And it was actually quite nice. They have a picture of the relative, and we would offer very opulent Mahaprasad to the deities, and then take large plate and offer it to that relative for their journey, right? So, on the pretext of performing the appropriate rituals of mourning, and thence continued on a pilgrimage of all of India's holy places. So he went up there, and that was the start. Mahaprabhu also went to Gaya on the pretext of doing Shraddha for the purpose of meeting his guru, Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so when he came to Vrindavan, he became absorbed in the worship of Krishna. But through his meditation, he was able to understand that Krishna was about to appear in Navadvip. So he went there about how many years? I guess then he would have still been a fairly young man, anywhere between 25 and 35, right? Krishna's going to appear in Navadvip? Yeah. Because if he's 50, no, wait a minute. He would have been about 50 or 60. He's about to appear in Navadvip. Okay. So, anyway, don't worry about my mundane calculation. It has no bearing on the Leela. It got up all in dates and everything. Anyway, he was able to, what do I know? Why do I even speak? Anyway, I do our best. He was able to understand that Krishna was about to appear in Navadvip. While on this pilgrimage, he stopped in Mithila, where he met the poet Vidyapati. This encounter is beautifully described in Advaita Vilas. Advaita Prabhu finally returned from Vrindavan to Shantipur after spending several days in Navadvip. The people of Shantipur had been suffering from his separation for a long time and were very happy to see him back. Oh, there's something else that happened in Vrindavan. Maybe he's going to mention it elsewhere. But while in Vrindavan, near Madan Mohan, what we know as Madan Mohan Temple now, which had not manifested yet, below that hill, he discovered the deity of Madan Mohan, who at that time was known as Madan Gopal, buried beneath a tree. One of the deities that had been buried because of fear from the Muslims, and one of the original deities established by Brajanab, the great-grandson of Sri Krishna. And so he discovered it, very ecstatically worshipped, and then took it to Mathura and put it in the care of a Chobe Brahmana family. And many years later, Sanatana Goswami went there in Mathura on his parikram, and there's that whole pastime where he found the deity also, and the deity said, I want to go back with you to Vrindavan, to the place that very near to the place where he'd been discovered, and then up on the hill installed. So the people of Shantipur had been suffering from his separation for a long time and very happy to see him back. Right? So, Lord Vishnu is always accompanied by three energies or Shaktis. Now, when it says he was about to appear in Navadvip, I just had a realization. That could mean anything. About to appear, in Vedic time frame, sometimes it means, he's going to appear in the Kali Yuga. sometime in this lifetime. So I can't put a finger on the time frame here, unless it's specific. Lord Vishnu is always accompanied by three energies or Shaktis, Shri, Bhu, and Nila, who is also Leela. Leela Shakti, Shri Shakti, Bhu Shakti. Advaita Acharya's own divine persona would not be fully manifest without all these three energies of his identity. Therefore, Advaita Acharya accepted two wives. One was named Sri Devi, the other Sita Devi. Both appeared as daughters of the great Brahmana devotee Sri Nrsimha Bhaduri. In the Gorganodeshtipika, it is written that the divine Yogamaya took the form of Advaita Prabhu's wife Sita, and Sri is her Prakash expansion. All right. So Advaita Acharya, so Yogamaya is the source of these other Shaktis. So with Yogamaya, then he is complete, and then Sri Devi, the other wife, she's an expansion of that Yogamaya. Advaita Acharya had two residences, one in Shantipur, the other not far from Srivasa's home in Navadvip Mayapur. His heart was greatly pained at seeing that the people of the world were devoid of any devotion to Vishnu, and as a consequence, greatly suffering the torments of material life. Overwhelmed with compassion, he began to teach the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining that the purport of the scriptures was to engage in devotional service to Krishna, because the people of Navadvip had completely lost the plot. That's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat in detail, how materialistic they had become. So, full of compassion and fully imbued with the sense of mission of the Lord, right? Paritranaya sadhunam, right? Vinashaya chadushkatam, enlightening and protecting the devotees, destroying demons, but in Kali Yuga, destroying them by enlightening them, right? As a precursor to Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Here's the Acharya. At about the same time, Madhavendra Puri had a dream in which Govardhan Dari Gopal commanded him to find sandalwood paste for the deity service. Madhavendra Puri then started out for Puri, taking the road through western Bengal. While there, he stopped at Advaita Acharya's house in Shantipur. Advaita Prabhu became convinced that Madhavendra Puri was his guru when he saw his devotional ecstasies. Even though he himself is an expansion of the Supreme Lord, he underwent the ritual of initiation in order to demonstrate to the conditioned souls the necessity of accepting a spiritual master, as did Mahaprabhu with Ishvara Puri, the disciple, chief disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So, quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Madhavendra Puri arrived at Advaita Acharya's house. When Advaita Acharya saw Puripad's prem, he felt a deep inner joy. He begged to be initiated by him, after which Madhavendra Puri left to continue his voyage to the south. Fourth chapter of Madhya Lila. Now, it is said that Mahaprabhu is the main trunk of the wish-fulfilling tree of devotion, as well as the gardener who enjoys and distributes the tree's fruits. Though the tree was planted in Navadvip, it grew in Purushottam Dham, Puri, and Vrindavan, expanding into an entire orchard, producing many, many fruits of love. Madhavendra Puri is said to be the first seedling, which eventually grew into this tree. Ishvara Puri was the sprouted form of this seedling. Mahaprabhu, though himself the gardener, also became the tree's main trunk through his inconceivable energies. Advaita Prabhu and Nityananda Prabhu were the two secondary trunks into which the main trunk divided. So you ever see a tree like that? Big tree with the trunk and then two parts, two main trunks. Right? So Advaita's one, Nityananda the other, Mahaprabhu the base, the seed from which it came, Madhavendra Puri, the first sprout, Ishvara Puri. Right. Now it's going to describe how he is the cause of the Lord's descent. This is very important because this is one of his principal pastimes for which he's identified and acknowledged and thanked. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the main body of the devotional movement, and Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu are his principal limbs, whereas Srivas and other devotees are his secondary limbs. All of them advented in order to preach devotion to Hari. All those who were senior to Gauranga appeared on this earth prior to him. Advaita Prabhu appeared along with the other elder members of Chaitanya's retinue. And when he did so, he observed that the sinfulness of the age of Kali had reached a disturbing extreme, and that the world was entirely devoid of devotion to Lord Krishna. He thought that a partial avatar of the Lord would not be sufficient to completely remedy the situation. Because you might think, well, he's incarnation of the Lord, why doesn't he do it? But he felt that the situation was so dire that the Lord himself had to come. And there's a pastime where the description of what the devotees were going through at that time is given. They were being so harassed by their Smarta Brahmana neighbors and threatened. We'll push your house into the sea. We'll tell the king the Muslims will come and take you and kill you or convert you to Muslims. They're having so much difficulty. Advaita Acharya could not stand it anymore. And feeling compassion for both the ignorant people of Navadvip, but especially for the devotees, he began to pray. He thought, the world will only benefit if the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself descends to the earth. So he began to worship Krishna's lotus feet with Ganga water and tulsi leaves, shouting and pleading to the Lord to descend. With roars of love, prema hunkara, Advaita Acharya showed his desire for the Lord of Goloka to descend to the earth, because he's tadatmak with the desire of the Lord. Remember in the Adi Lila, the Lord himself, 4th chapter, describes his own desire to descend and to teach the most confidential aspect of devotion, the love of the devotees in Braj, and especially the love of the gopis. And so Advaita Acharya also, completely aware of that, that's internally also. Now you must ascend to fulfill your own purpose. So, he constantly offered water from the Ganga and Tulsi Manjaris while meditating on the Lord's lotus feet, at the same time calling to Krishna with loud roars. This is the way he brought about the Lord's descent. This plea, and this is a quote, these are 3 verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita, this plea by Advaita Acharya is the chief reason for Krishna Chaitanya to descend on earth. The Lord, the protector of religion, descends at the wish of his devotee. So, chief cause. Now, another quote from Bhakti Ratnakar. Advaita Acharya lived in Shantipur. His body is the reservoir of devotional nectar, and not different from that of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He whose spotless fame has filled the world brought Sri Krishna Chaitanya down to this earth. My Advaita Prabhu is not different from Gauranga, and his wife Sita is the mother of the universe. First he brought Gauranga into this world with his roars, and then he glorified him everywhere. That's from Bhakti Ratnakar. Now from Chaitanya Bhagavat. All glories to Advaita Acharya, the most merciful, whose roars brought, oh no, this is also Bhakti Ratnakar, the next one, Chaitanya Bhagavat, whose roars brought about Gauranga's avatar. Whoever takes shelter of his lotus feet will obtain the great wealth of love for Gaur. So remember that today, especially pray to Advaita Acharya. We want to take shelter of his lotus feet, because whoever takes shelter of his lotus feet will obtain the great wealth of Gaur Prem. Now Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adikanda, second chapter. He constantly served Krishna with great enthusiasm, offering Ganga water and Tulsi manjaris. Absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, he worshipped him by roaring his name, the sound of which filled the entire universe, reaching up to Vaikuntha. Lord Krishna heard the sound of these roars of love and appeared himself, for he is controlled by his devotee. Okay, so then he says, Nityananda Prabhu, the non-different manifestation of Lord Balaram, also descended prior to Mahaprabhu's appearance on the 13th day of the waxing moon in the month of Magh into the family of Harai Pandit and Padmavati in the village of Ekachakra in Raha, bestowing upon them the opportunity to serve him in the Vatsalya Ras. Meanwhile, 8 daughters were born to Jagannath Mishra and Shachi Devi, all of whom died before their son Vishwarup, Nityananda's other self, appeared. Subsequently, on the full moon evening of the month of Palgun, the source of all avatars and the father of the Sankirtan movement, Gaurachandra made his appearance in the midst of Krishna Sankirtan that people in Navadvip were performing on the pretext of the lunar eclipse. So that's a sequence. And so after the appearance of Sri Chaitanya, Sita Dev took Advaita Acharya's permission to come with gifts to Navadvip from Shantipur to see the most wonderful child. When she saw him, she blessed him by placing paddy and durva grass on his head. Here's a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita. After taking permission from her husband, Advaita Acharya, Sita Thakurani, the most respectable and noble lady, went to Navadvip bearing gifts to see the crown jewel of infants. Okay, so I know we're going a little bit longer than we normally go, but this is Advaita Acharya's appearance day. We're not going to have any breakfast or anything, no big rush. And there is some pastimes are going to be happening. This was all this Shastric support for the description and purpose of Advaita Prabhu's descent and he being the cause of Mahaprabhu's coming. And then the sequence of time, first him, then Nityananda, the 2 trunks of the tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then Mahaprabhu himself. Also, it's described that when he appeared, Advaita and Haridas began to dance in ecstasy, and they felt that his prayers had been fulfilled, right? So, by the influence of Yogamaya, they could understand that now the Lord has appeared. But somehow or other, when he moved to Navadvip and near Mahaprabhu and was teaching school, he couldn't recognize that was his Lord that had appeared. Yogamaya covered all the inhabitants of Navadvip that were devotees, so that the Leela of him growing up and doing all these very wonderful pastimes had the Narvat quality, human-like pastime, and not obscured by knowledge of his Bhagavata, right? So, Advaita Acharya established a school for teaching Sanskrit in Navadvip Mayapur and started to engage in a deep study of the scriptures. Every day, after bathing in the Ganga, Mahaprabhu's older brother, Vishwarup, used to go to Advaita's house to listen to him lecture. When Advaita Acharya was engaged in performing his puja, Vishwarup would explain to everyone present that, ever and present there, that devotion to Krishna is the ultimate purport of all the scriptures. When Advaita Acharya heard him speaking in this way, he got up from worshipping his deity and embraced him. Shachi regularly sent young Nimai at noon with something for Vishrupa's lunch. When Advaita Prabhu saw Nimai's beautiful face, he became enchanted, but was unable to recognize him as his worshipable Lord, the Supreme Truth. And it's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat that he'd be stunned with his beauty, and he would question himself, why am I so overwhelmed with attraction to this young boy? I'm not attracted to anything in this world. And yet when I see this young boy, I'm practically stunned into unconsciousness by his beauty. In the meantime, Vishwarup, and Mahaprabhu, this young boy, would look at him and smile, thinking, you called me? You don't recognize me? And then he would take his brother back home for lunch. In the meantime, Vishwarup had secretly decided that he would renounce family life in the knowledge that the material world is temporary and that a human being's only real duty is to worship the Lord. When he saw that his parents were starting to make wedding plans for him, he quickly left home and took sannyas, after which he was known by the name as Shankararanya. Shachi, Jagannath Mishra, and other devotees all lamented his loss. Why did they lament the loss? On the material platform? No. Their lamentation was separation, because he's an expansion of Nityananda, an expansion of their younger son. He's their eternal son. They had prayed for him, nothing mundane about their love. Advaita Prabhu also was pained by Vishwarup's departure, but pacified everyone by saying that Krishna himself would appear soon to eradicate everyone's distress. He knew that Krishna had appeared, he just didn't realize that he was there in their midst. After Vishwarup left home, Shachi and Jagannath Mishra feared that Nimai would follow his example, and so they put a stop to his education. Later, however, when they heard Nimai speaking sweetly in the mood of Dattatreya, they decided it would be better to send him back to school. Kind of an impersonal description of the material world. He's sitting on the discarded cooking pots, which is considered to be a dirty place. And his mother chastised him, said, what's the difference? It's all the energy of the Lord. You used it to cook for the Lord, and now you're saying it's contaminated, and it's kind of all one, right? And Mother Shachi said, well, different things in different states at different times have different qualities. Yes, it was a cooking pot, now it's discarded. She's also very learned. She was arguing with him, but then she thought, She said, where'd you come up with this nonsense? He said, well, what do you expect? I'm not going to school. How can I know what's right and wrong? And then they thought, maybe we should send him back to school. Later, however, it'd be better to send him to school. Jagannath Mishra left this world not long after Nimai was given the sacred thread and had become fully absorbed in his studies. While Mahaprabhu was still fully devoted to his pastimes as a scholar, his mother arranged his marriage to Lakshmi Priya, the daughter of Balaba. In those days, Advaita Acharya was holding Bhagavat lectures and kirtan at his house in Navadvip. All the devotees, including Advaita Acharya, were very enthused about the singer Mukunda Datta's fine voice. On one occasion, Ishwarpuri came to Advaita Acharya's house while visiting Navadvip. From his vigorous appearance, Advaita Acharya was able to recognize that he was a Vaishnava sannyasi. They're actually godbrothers, right? But in those days, they didn't have telephones and ways of communicating and all, so it would, you didn't have constant connection. Your guru's another part of India. I mean, in some sense, it's almost like being on the moon, so far away. Only when people actually met, or when you get word from someone who had met someone. Later, Gauranga also met Ishvara Puri there. At that time, here's a quote from Chaitanya Bhagavat in the Adikanda, Ishvara Puri arrived in Navadvip incognito. Ishvara Puri was single-minded in his constant preoccupation with relishing Krishna's devotion. He was dear to Krishna and compassionate. No one was able to recognize him because he was not dressed like a devotee until he arrived by chance one day at Advaita Acharya's house. Okay. So there's more of that. Wait. So I'm going to stop here. I think we're just going to spend one more day on Advaita Acharya tomorrow, because we definitely have to complete this. And we've done a lot about Nityananda Prabhu already, and this Nityananda Prabhu is woven into this as well. And after that, then we'll make a plan of how to lead up to Nityananda Prabhu. But there's so much here. We cannot but do this. So, offering obeisance to Sri Advaita Acharya, all the Panchatattva, to our beloved Srila Prabhupada, to our Shiksha Sannyas Guru Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Raj, to all these humble Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, wherever they may be. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.